Sutekh, last of the Scions. You pit your puny mind against me. Kneel. No! No! Kneel before the might of Sutekh. In my presence, you are an ant, a termite, an insignificant insect. Your power means nothing. You are evil, Sutekh. Evil? Your evil is my good. Then again, some of your evil is not my good. Wokeness! Wokeness! I am the Lord of Death. How am I woke? Whatever woke means. You appear in episodes written by Russell T Davies. He is woke, so you are woke. Wokeness. I cannot be asked to deal with you. I bring Sutekh's gift of death. What? No! You woke lefty! There are even some levels of evil that I do not find good. Not even I sink to that space crybabies level. Oh, tell me about it. Oh, to quote myself 2 incarnations ago, all these evils I have fought. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, Pyramid of Mars review. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here. It's been nearly 50 years since this brilliant story, Pyramids of Mars, first graced our screens in October-November 1975, 49 years this autumn. It is one of the stories from season 13, which is my second favourite season of Doctor Who overall, after season 30, series 4, and my personal favourite season of the classic series, as series 4's revival. And this season for me has some of the most iconic stories of the show, and much like series 4 and season 29, series 3, has a strong run of almost every story is amazing, 9 or 10 out of 10. The only one I don't think is anywhere near that level is Planet of Evil, which I actually can't stand. That's the only bad one this season. But other than that blunder, the rest of the season is cracking. First of all, we've got Terror of the Zygons, a season 12 holder, but a brilliant way to start the season. We got the Android Invasion, which is a secret hidden gem. I really suggest you check that one out. It's definitely a Be Kind Rewind type of story. We got the Frankenstein heavily influenced Brain of Morbius, which dials deeper into Time Lord and Khan lore. Khan obviously going to be a bit more important with the 11th and 12th Doctors era, plus the Morbius Doctors that make appearance in this story are going to be referenced in The Timeless Children, and that's not even talking about the expanded media stories that feature Morbius or the Sisterhood of Khan, with Morbius recently coming back to Big Finish, played by Samuel West, who I believe played him back in his previous appearances with the 8th Doctor about 10-15 years ago. So yeah, for the 8th Doctor Adventures Series 2 or Series 3. So he's had a bit of a resurgence come back. He's going to meet the War Doctor at a later date as well. And then we end up the Seeds of Doom, which is a cracking 6-part finale, which somehow has a scene where a character gets a pretty gnarly death, akin to the James Bond film License to Kill, but toned down because it's still a kids' show. And that somehow is a U, yet License to Kill to 15. Basically, a character gets thrown into a weed mixer thing, and that's how they die. And I compare it to License to Kill because that film has a character grinded up into a drug grinding machine thing. It's not exactly the nicest way to go. And yet, Seeds of Doom is still a U. Or at the very least, it was on the DVD and the VHS. The DVD's PG due to menus. It might get PG for the Blu-ray. And speaking of U-rated stories that are somehow rated U for video and DVD, but might get PG on the Blu-ray, depending what the BBFC feel at the time, is the best story of the season, Pyramids of Mars, which is very relevant to now because Sutekh has returned. Yes, so after the Zygons, Sutekh is our second returning monster/villain from season 13. Depends how you classify the Sisters of Khan, of course, in the TV series as well, by the way. Of course, Morbius in expanded media, the Krynoids in expanded media, Zygon, Sutekh also in expanded media, even the Krolls in expanded media. Nothing from Planet of Evil, though. Then again, that story doesn't really need a sequel. I mean, one positive thing I can say about it is self-contained. Then again, there's a lot of stories that don't necessarily need sequels or prequels or midquels or other follow-ups, and they get them anyway. Pyramids of Mars sort of kind of has it with the recent season 1 Battle / Series 14 / Season 40 finale, Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death. And whilst he does look quite different in those stories, and he acts fairly differently, but still retaining his character from the original story itself. So there's similarities, even if it's changed a little bit over time due to the relevance of the newer story he appears in. We're going to save our full thoughts on The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death, as well as the entirety of Bad Wolf Season 1 / Series 14 / Season 40. For later dates further in the year. But as it stands, Pyramids of Mars is definitely the stronger of the two Sutekh TV stories. As great of a setup as Legend was, I think Empire kind of let it down a bit. But Pyramids of Mars is a very strong and solid story throughout, with a great setup with its first episode, and then as the stakes raising throughout episodes 2 and 3 as well. Episode 4 raises the stakes to its maximum with the scenes with the Sutekh and the Doctor. It kind of cools down a little bit in the middle of part 4 to do the puzzle solving and the logic. And the ending is kind of solved pretty quickly, like they've got 2 minutes to quickly stop Sutekh this other way that they've got with the time controller from the TARDIS. So they kind of quickly wrap up the ending of the story as well, even if it's fairly explained. I suppose that does leave Sutekh a way out to appear in other stories such as the recent Season 1 Bad Wolf finale, as well as expanded media stories. Definitely one that could have been given a little bit more breathing space, or at the very least, a bit more like, oh, I've got this, I can use it against Sutekh. Maybe something we could have set up earlier in the story. That would have been neat. If we set up the time controller, maybe the Doctor mentions he has it as a way to grab it and to use for the Professor's machine that he's been working on. Not the Professor, the Professor's brother, Lawrence, who is a pretty neat character, by the way. I like Lawrence. He's funny enough, played by an actor who's going to pop up a few more times, including a story 2 seasons later in Invisible Enemy. And then he's the headmaster in Remembrance, which is fucking awesome. Remembrance of the fucking awesome Daleks. Besides the 4th part kind of being a little bit slower and the ending maybe being a little bit faster paced, and maybe we could have set up the time controller a little bit sooner, or at least mentioned it, we still get a really strong and satisfying overall story. My only other kind of complaint is that the Poacher character maybe appears in too many scenes, but I think I can understand why he's there and what he doesn't contribute an awful lot. Classic Who likes to include a couple of random characters here and there who either get killed or just stumble into stuff and just about get out there. I can remember Claws of Axos Part 1 had this random guy on a bike. Just cutting from scenes with units to scenes of him just doing random stuff. And even Mr. Ollis from the Three Doctors is a character like this, but one who gets out alive. We get a couple of random other people just in the story doing some things that's sort of relevant, but other times are just kind of there. That's one thing I think New Who either does better when it's like trying to establish other characters' reactions to what's going on, or they don't include them at all, which is, or they are heavily relevant to the story. So, I mean, there's a few exceptions. And I think the poacher scenes could have been cut down a bit, certainly for the Tales of the TARDIS version that also was aired just before Empire of Death. I watched that time recording yesterday. Some of the video going out, it should be a few days later. And yeah, for all of the scenes that were trimmed or cut, including some of those puzzle logic solving things towards the end in what would be part 4 of the original, and they kept a lot of the poacher stuff, poacher's character scenes. But those minor quibbles aside, this is an absolutely excellent story. The production value is brilliant for the classic series, and it looks great in lots of places. And I love the use of lots of location filming for the Priory scenes and the exteriors. Even when we cut back to inside the hall and the lodge, it doesn't even feel too bad of a set because it looks pretty good for the most parts. There's a few obvious sets, like we see earlier on in the Egypt scenes, but the Priory and the Lodge look really great as sets. And even the production of the time looks really great. The costumes are also really great for the robot mummies and Sutekh himself, and the makeup and the effects that are used for Marcus Scarman are really great. By the way, do they have a smoke machine attached to lots of the stuff in this episode? Because in this story, because there's a really great use of smoke used for some of the objects coming out of that time portal thing, and when Sutekh and Scarman are killing people, it works really effectively. And even though Terry Tables from the TARDIS changed the time tunnel effects to match the 2023 time vortex, the old effects as seen on the cover were for the original time tunnel are still pretty good as well. Maybe a little dated by today's standards, but they still look like a pretty cool time tunnel backdrop effect for characters to go down, even if I think what's more dated is how the characters are positioned on that. But for the time, it's still a really good effect. And I like how this story adds a level of severity and seriousness and danger that the classic series doesn't really go for the big scale stuff that often. That's more of a New Who territory, especially under Russell T Davies. But Pyramids of Mars sells the, like, this is the biggest danger we've ever faced at this point of time aspect really well. It really sells that really great. Also, whilst the Fourth Doctor is more fondly remembered for his more comedic, fun scenes, like City of Death, for example, when we mimic or parody the Fourth Doctor, we usually kind of do the more very comedic, bohemian type of character. But season 13, as well as other elements of the Hinchcliffe era, has him quite serious in places. I mean, sometimes he cracks a joke or doesn't take the situation entirely seriously, but then later he's like a very serious, like very focused, and can actually get really angry. As we see in Seeds of Doom later in the season, he can get really angry and really serious about this highly dangerous situation. And something similar happens here. In fact, his alienness comes more through, showing him like maybe he's more focused on trying to stop this bigger situation rather than being concerned for the lives at risk. I mean, he's concerned for the lives at risk, but when they die, he doesn't show as much remorse or sadness, and he can be quite cross when someone does something that kind of interferes with everything. So the Fourth Doctor here, he definitely has a lot more sense of his alienness or a more seriousness coming through from him that other Doctors, like say the Third Doctor, or later on ones like the 9th or the 12th Doctors would have. By the way, this is one of Sarah Jane Smith's best stories as a companion in the classic series. We talk about how she's such a great feminist companion at the time of her introduction, and how she was great with John Pertwee's third Doctor, and then kind of mould into a little bit more of a typical companion for the fourth Doctor, despite the strengthened chemistry between the actors. But she still proved to be one of Classic Who's greatest companions throughout her entire 3.5 season run, and this one definitely proves that. This is one of her best stories. In episode 3, she gets to shoot a rifle at a box of Jellicoe explodey stuff in order to help blow up a missile rocket thing that they're building, and she's really great throughout the majority of this story. This is definitely a story to show the Sarah Jane Adventures audience as an example of her original series. In fact, they did on the Series 4 DVD and Blu-ray. They included this story as a bonus episode. So technically you can watch Pyramids of Mars on Blu-ray at this current point in time already if you have the Sarah Jane Adventures Series 4 Blu-ray. Although it would be in its presumably the standard edition, maybe upscaled a little bit for that release. But it will be coming to Blu-ray when the Season 13 box set eventually comes out. I'm actually surprised they never did a special edition DVD release before they stopped the DVD range for this story. I think this one would have been a good one to do a special edition release of. Oh, by the way, if you do have the DVD, or if it gets included on the upcoming, at some point, Season 13 Blu-ray, there's a really good little funny sketch video called Oh Mummy, which is sort of like a funny parody skit featuring Sutekh that I highly recommend you check out, just for curiosity's sake. It's very funny. Overall, Pyramids of Mars is an excellent example of peak Classic Who, peak Fourth Doctor, peak Sarah Jane Smith, peak almost everything. Besides maybe the Poacher being in the story a little too much. He only needs to be in it a little bit, or mentioned a few bits, and it kind of does slow down a little bit towards the end before speeding up the ending. But on the whole, this story is still an absolute cracking adventure, folks, and absolutely one of the best of Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor run. Definitely a 10 out of 10 score. As for me personally, it is my 5th favourite Fourth Doctor story, or 4th favourite. My top 5 Fourth Doctor stories at the moment are 1 to 5. City of Death is number 1, then it's Ark in Space at number 2, and then we get to Genesis of the Daleks at number 3, and I believe I put Deadly Assassin 4th. So this one then rounds off the top 5. But despite my number 1 being from a later season, most of my favourites will be from these first 3 Tom Baker runs, especially season 13. As mentioned, it's my personal favourite of Classic Who, and the strongest of the Tom Baker era. So that's it from my review of Pyramids of Mars. Thank you for watching, and thank you so much for watching Tom Baker Month. It's a shame it's over. Oh. We enjoy doing these theme months on Whoniversals. We quite like it. Yes. Things are going to go back to normal, regular, anything goes videos next month, but you know what? We've enjoyed doing these theme months quite a lot on Whoniversals. We should do another one soon. I mean, we're not going to be doing the Series 14 reviews, Season 1 Bad Wolf reviews just yet, so it would be nice to do another theme month video. Like I said, not July, but you know, maybe another one this summer. You know, maybe we do something for August. But we did Tom Baker Month because of the 50th anniversary of the Fourth Doctor's first appearance, or it will be in December, but counting the regeneration scene, it was at the end of Planet of Spiders in the June of 74. So if we're going to do another theme month, we're going to need to find another Doctor who's celebrating an anniversary of some sort at the very least. But we can't do the 6th Doctor because we've already done him, although it would be good to do another sort of celebration for the 6th Doctor for his 40th anniversary. And the 9th Doctor's not going to get his 20th anniversary till next year, so we can't do him. We can't do the 60th anniversary for the 1st Doctor because we did that last year. And 94, the 7th Doctor hadn't finished his run yet. The 8th Doctor hadn't started yet, so we can't do a 30th anniversary. So that only leaves 2014 for the 10th anniversary. But who first appeared at the very end of 2013 or in 2014 that we could potentially do a theme month for in August, when their first episode aired. You know who I'm talking about, don't you? Yes, it's Peter Capaldi. That's right, folks. Coming this August, Capaldi month. So everything 12 Doctor, everything Peter Capaldi, everything to do with their TV adventures and expanded media stories. Stay tuned. But you've also got the usual anything goes stuff to look forward to in July as well. So until next time, everybody, we'll see you guys then.